Thank you, and welcome everyone to this 58 Academy about the new star ID command. It is a new command, it is a new feature, but it does not introduce an awful lot of new. It does not enter an awful lot of new functionality. It replaces the way you can do things, which will make your automation probably a lot easier and your scripts a lot readable. But the only actual new functionality that we are introducing is in the translations. That means that this is not a very complicated academy. We expect that we will be done in half an hour. So with that out of the way, let's take a short look about the agenda. As said, this is all about the star ID and the buffer command, which are the two new things that we have introduced in the last release. This is all about scripting, so I will not be showing PowerPoint for a PowerPoint with scripts. This will all be a demo, looking at the script and then actually seeing what that script does. There will be a recap of what we have seen, and as always, we have time for questions. So with that out of the way, what are these new commands that we are introducing? The first one is the ID. You can use that ID to refer to a question instead of the question number. And you can use that ID to refer to a code instead of the code number. We also now have IDs for star page and star matrix, and that is where the only real new functionality comes from. That means that we can now translate these pages and these matrices directly. And then we have a slight change in the text piping, which you normally do with a asterisk and then question mark and then a variable name. You can now directly refer to the answer in a question by simply writing star question mark and then the question that you want to show, the answer to the question that you want to show. We'll all see this in the demo, so let's go to the demo. Sure, I'm still sharing my screen. I am. So we'll take a look at this script. What I have done here, I used the first few examples that we are using in our basic training course, in our basic scripting training course. And I simply rewrite those. I have simply rewrite those to use IDs instead of the question numbers. So let's start with the first one. The first command that we learned, that we always learn you when we start scripting, is the alpha command, where we simply ask, what is your name? And as you can see, I now have added a ID to this, which is rest name, which means that I could either refer to this question as Q10 or I could refer to it as rest name. Then the next question we usually learn you for text piping is that we say, what is your age? And then pipe in the answer that is given to the name question. So this would then be, what is your age, Frank? If I answered Frank to the first question. What we usually used to do, and what we still learn you in the basic course, is that you then need to have a save command here, save that in a variable, and that you then here need to write out that variable. But as said, we have now made it possible to directly revert to a question, so that save command and that variable is no longer needed for this. You can directly do a star question mark Q10. Let's actually see this in action. And for that, I will minimize this a bit. And on the other side, I will try to run the script. This is, very quickly check this. This is the correct script. So move this out of the way. Let's copy the live link. And let's start the survey and let them do this side by side. Reorganize this so we get everything in view. So, what is your name? That is this question now on the name. The fact that we are using AID doesn't matter. And this is where we write out what is your name. Start with question 10. So this is the answer that I gave to the previous question. Then the next thing that we learn you in the basic course is to have a number question, which is the question that you see right here, where you answer a number. As you see, I have given this the ID res_h. And then one of the things that we learn you the first day is how to recode this number question into a codes question. So that is the next thing that I have done here. I have created a codes question. I have given that a ID, which is respondent age brackets. It's a dummy question. I'm not really asking it. I'm going to recode this based on the answer to the number question. And as you can see, I have also given IDs to all the codes. So younger than 12 is a child, 12 to 18 is a minor, 19 to 25 is young adult, 26 to 55 is adult, and 55 plus I have called senior. And then I have written the if statements, which you should recognize if you have done the basic course, but now using actually the IDs to write out these statements. So if res_age, which is the number question of your age, if that is lower than 12, I include into res_age brackets this question, child, which is this. So I can completely rewrite all these if statements using these IDs. Now let's see if that works. So if I answer 44 here, it should be recoded to 1925. This is a young adult. And it does 2655, which is correct. So then, and to check that recoding, what I have done is that I put a new question that I simply paste the set on the control of our dummy question where we did the recoding, and that control, as you can see, what we used to do is say then Q30 was mentioned, and we can now do Q and then actually use the ID was mentioned. So everywhere where we used to be able to refer to questions, we can use the IDs. Then we have the next question, which is question 40, which is simply a gender question. Again, I have given this the ID is gender and the codes male, female. So let's do the next one. Where I can actually give an answer. I will not give that answer right now. Let's move to the next question and see where I am using this. I have done a if statement here, and as you can see, that if statement is completely readable even for someone who doesn't know Eden, who doesn't know ODIN, should still be able to actually understand what this if statement does, because it clearly says if the respondent age brackets is senior and the gender is a female, those are the filters on this question. So we clearly know that this is a question for older women. You don't even have to understand ODIN to see that. And also, if you are a scripter, it's still a lot easier to do this than to think back, okay, what is actually question Q31, which would be the question that we are using here, and what is question Q40, which would be the gender questions. I said that I was 44, so even if I now say I'm a female, I should not get this question because I'm not old enough. And indeed, it gets to this question where it simply says, do you want to test this filter again with different values? If I say no, it will end the questionnaire. If I say yes, it will use a goto. And again, as you can see in the goto, I can also use the ID to actually jump to the question. As you can see here, we are using queues everywhere, but not for the goto. But that is because the goto, even if you do a goto on a question number, you don't use the queue either. So that is why we don't use the queue here also. So let's do yes. Let's rerun this. Let's do this with different numbers. So 77 should make me old enough for the question. It does. I'm a senior now. Still accept female, and then I should get the filter, and I get the filter. If I say again, yes, let's change this. Let's accept 77, and let's change this to male. That should skip again. So, and it does. So everything still works exactly as we are used to. We are only now using the IDs. And by using those IDs, we are making the script a lot more readable than we were used to. Okay, second thing that we should wonder is, okay, what then actually happens if we use this? Let me very quickly check if I've done everything. Yeah, now one more thing that I would like to show you before we are moving to how the variable file, what the variable file looks like. If you can see here in what is your age, I have used in the buffer still Q10. I did that for clarity, but also here you can actually use. So Q10 is rest name. I can actually use rest name here. And that should work exactly the same as if I use Q10 here. Okay. So that out of the way. Let's go to question. Let's take a look at the variable file, which is here. So let's actually download this. I need to complete the survey to actually have a, which I already done, so that's fine. So let's go to monitor fieldwork and let's download our data and let's take a look at the VAR file. Download data. I'm only interested in the VAR file, so I don't need any of these. Create download. And let's give a new download. Let's get that. This one. And that should give us a VAR file, which doesn't. Why? I'm not going to wonder. I probably did something wrong. I will simply use the one from yesterday. Because that one has a VAR file. Okay, let's open that in the ODIN developer. Yeah, read only is fine. As you can see, those IDs that we used come back in the VAR file as a comment, VAR ID res name. The same is true for the IDs on the codes. So in the VAR file, not much changes. That ID is there. Is depending on what you are, on how you are processing that VAR file. If you will see those IDs in your reporting pipeline. The DSC can work with this command. If you use the latest version of the DSC, you can actually use those IDs in your reporting as well. I see that there is one question here. I saw that popping up if the IDs are case sensitive. The answer is no. but they are case sensitive at this moment, but that is actually a mistake. That will be, so if you have tested this and you have seen that this is case sensitive now, you are correct, it is case sensitive now, but they will no longer be case sensitive in 2 weeks, because they shouldn't be case sensitive. To very quickly answer that question. So we have taken a look at the FAR file. Let's go to the one new thing that we have, which is the translation. To explain that, let me actually go to a page that needs to be translated. So very simple question. I have one question where I switch language if needed, and then there is a page. I should remove this one. There is a page where I simply say this is an English page. Now, if I want to translate this, what we then need to do is that we need to go to ODIN, say remove commands, and whatever we got left here, this is what we should translate. So we should translate pick your language and then English and then English and Nederlands. But as you can see here, if we go back to the translation page, I do not have page here because there is no identification for page. So I cannot translate this page. So what we then usually did is that you create a second question that then only hold all these things that you cannot translate, and you store the codes of that question into a variable, and then you actually use the variable here to write out, and then the Sri Lang will translate this as much. So you could still translate it, but that's a pretty that's a rather complicated workaround, just because there is no ID for that page. But we can actually, as you saw earlier, we can give this page an ID now. So let's give this page ID page to be translated. Rather long ID, which is wrong now, page to be translated. And if I now actually go into ODIN and I remove the commands, you will see I actually now have page star ID near here. So I can now actually translate this page directly, and I no longer need to use this workaround. This is true for page. The same is true for matrix questions, which I also have an example here. This is the example coming from our Enfield Chicago reference. This is the example we have for a single matrix. This is the matrix. The question, the thing that you would want to translate but cannot translate, but currently can only translate via the workaround, is this. The actual question of the question text of the matrix itself. Again, if we go to ODIN and say remove commands, you will see that we have question 10, we have star matrix question 20, but we actually do not have this text here. Now, if we add an ID to this one here, ID matrix to be translated. And if I run this again, remove commands, you will see we actually now have the text of this matrix as well, because we have an ID to it. So we can actually translate this one as well. So that ends the demo. So let's go to our presentation again. Let's do a short recap. So you can now use star ID on questions and codes. To refer to an ID in the script, as you saw we do, you should use the squarely brackets. So qnum becomes q squarely brackets ID, and then the ID name squarely brackets. In the translation sections, you can use those IDs too. So if you want to use the ID for questions, it becomes question star ID, and then the ID name. For matrix, it is matrix star ID, ID name, and for page, it's page star ID, ID name. There will be a warning if you use IDs on some questions or codes, but not for all. That warning will be that you are using an inconsistent naming. You can accept that warning, or you can make it better. That is especially important if you rely in your reporting on those IDs to be there. Then you should really make sure that that warning is fixed. IDs must start with a letter, and they can contain letters, numbers, and underscores. No other characters than that. And they, as said, must start with a letter. The star ID is fully supported from ODIN developer version 5.18.032 onwards. Note the fully supported. There are some versions before this, especially 3.1, which if you run it, you will see in the syntax highlighting that ID perfectly highlighted. So that makes the suggestion that it is fully supported, but it isn't. Some of the things that I show you are not supported in that developer version yet. So if you want to use the IDs, make sure that you are using ODIN developer version 3.2, and the ID is supported from DSC version 2.00024 onwards. So from that DSC version, you can actually use those IDs in your reporting as well. Any questions, Art?
Yes, first comment about the DSC and developer. They have been released last week with the latest end filter release, so they can be downloaded from the website. Couple of questions, Frank, about the use of the var command. Should we continue using var at a question level or discontinue it and use ID?
That depends on what you want. The var and IDs roughly do the same thing in the sense that you can rename the ID name, that you can rename the question name in your reporting. What the ID offers you, that you can actually use that in your scripting as well. You cannot use that var name in your scripting. And other important difference between the var and the ID, that we actually force the IDs to be unique. So you cannot repeat a ID of a question in a survey itself. We do not force the var names to be unique. So those are the major difference, and yeah, you can use them alongside, but if you use the IDs in your reporting, I don't think there is much use for var in.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Very much related to it, for the Q1 example that you did, how do we define if you want to pick up the option codes or option labels? Earlier we used to do this by using vars and text vars.
I don't understand that question.
Okay. Okay, let's skip that one for now.
Yeah.
Next question, with the buffer command, is it possible to display a comma-separated list of answers for a multi-response?
No, no. What you will get if you use a if you get a multi-response, you will get the lowest code answered. That is what it will display there. It will not fill in a comma-separated text. If you want to pick up all the answers, you have to loop over it, and I would also put it in a index variable then, and not in a string comma-separated.
Okay, all clear. And another question, in your matrix example, post remove commands, the question 20 is outside the matrix block. Will that be an issue at translations?
No, 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 because that matrix there is only there to actually, you have removed the command, and that matrix there is only there to show that there is a matrix. And that end matrix command is not part of the translation part. That is part of the normal script. and the only thing that needs to be in that translations are those markets that need to be there, so you can identify the labels that need to be translated. So no, that end matrix isn't there. That's no problem. That's one of the commands that indeed need to be removed in those translation sections.
Okay, all clear. These were the questions, Frank.
Okay, good. The final remarks, recording of this session will be available later this week. Manuals will be updated. They are not updated yet, but you can count on it that they will be updated next week. If you have a suggestion for a topic, please write to your help desk and we will take that into consideration. Next NIPO Academies, there is a new login method for KP. For the KP client, I say new here, but it has been out for almost a year now, but we released that to one customer only. It's now, I think, time that we release that to the general public. So that will be a new way to actually connect to the KP client, to log into the KP client. And we will have an Academy about the landing page. We are doing the last few things on that landing page, and then we will release that as well. And not here on, but we will probably have an Academy pretty soon about the quality control features that we are building in. We're far from ready with that, but there is, I think, enough. There is enough functionality there at this moment to start using it. We will introduce that via an Academy as well. Okay, any last questions?
No, there is some discussion between, but no new question. I would close.
And thank you, and talk to you next time about the KP new KP login. Right. Bye bye.
Thank you all for joining. Bye bye.